In 1974, Muhammad Ali walked into a press conference before the most dangerous fight of his life. He was facing George Foreman, a man who had destroyed every opponent he'd faced, knocked out Joe Frazier, knocked out Ken Norton, men who had beaten Ali. Foreman was younger, bigger, and hitting harder than anyone in the sport. Every expert on the planet had picked Foreman to win. Most of them thought Ali was going to get seriously hurt. Ali walked in, sat down, looked at the cameras, and said, "I've already won." Foreman just doesn't know it yet. Not nervous, not trying to convince anyone, just settled. And then he went to Zaire and knocked Foreman out in the 8th round. Now here's what I want you to understand, because this isn't really about boxing. Ali didn't walk into that room with a different body or a different record. He walked in with a different mind, a different internal framework for how he saw himself, how he saw the room, and what he believed was already true about the outcome. That's what we're talking about today. Because most people think confidence is something you feel. It's not. It's something you build through specific ways of thinking that rewire how you show up in every room, every conversation, every interaction. There are 5 of them, and by the end of this video, you'll have all of them. Here's what we're covering. Framework 1, the outcome independent shift. Why the moment you stop needing a specific result, you become magnetic. Framework 2, the pre-decided identity. How to decide who you are before you walk into any room, so the room can't decide for you. Framework 3, the curator mindset. Why the most powerful people aren't trying to impress, they're evaluating. Framework 4, the contribution frame, the single switch that ends nervousness almost instantly. And Framework 5, the long game lens, how thinking in years instead of moments changes the way you carry yourself right now. If you've ever walked into a room and immediately felt smaller than you should, if you've ever left a conversation wishing you'd said something differently, if you've ever felt like other people just have something you don't, keep watching. Because that thing has a name, and it's learnable. Framework 1, outcome independence. Here's the trap most people fall into without realizing it. They walk into a room wanting something. They want the person to like them. They want to get the job. They want to impress someone. They want the night to go a certain way. And that wanting, that needing a specific outcome, leaks out of everything they do. Their body language tightens. Their words get careful. They start monitoring themselves instead of just being present. And ironically, the more they want it, the less naturally it comes. You felt this. Everyone has. Now think about the moments in your life when you were at your best, when you were fully relaxed, completely yourself, saying exactly the right things without thinking about it. I'd bet almost every one of those moments had one thing in common. You didn't need it to go a certain way. Maybe you were talking to someone and genuinely didn't care if they liked you. Maybe you were in a meeting where the stakes felt low. Maybe you were just having fun and forgot to be nervous. That's outcome independence. And the key insight is this: you don't have to wait for low-stakes situations to feel it. You can choose it. Before you walk into any room, any conversation, any date, ask yourself, what's the worst realistic outcome here? And then genuinely make peace with it. Not fake peace, real acceptance. Because when you're not desperate for a specific result, your whole system relaxes. You become easier to be around. You say bolder things. You listen better. You take up more space. The outcome you were chasing, it usually shows up anyway because you stopped strangling it. Now here's where it gets deeper. Because outcome independence is about letting go of the result, but Framework 2 is about locking in who you are before any of it even starts. Framework 2, the pre-decided identity. Most people let the room decide who they are. They walk in, read the energy, figure out who seems most important, and then quietly start adjusting themselves, their tone, their opinions, their posture, to fit what they think is expected. It's unconscious, but it's happening constantly. And the problem isn't just that it's exhausting, it's that people can feel it. When someone is shape-shifting to fit the room, there's a subtle inauthenticity to everything they do. You can't always name it, but you feel it. The people who walk into rooms and immediately command attention without trying, they did something before they arrived. They decided who they were. They know their values. They know their standards. They know how they treat people, what they find funny, what they won't compromise on. And that identity doesn't change based on who's in the room. Here's the exercise. Before any significant interaction, answer 3 questions. Who am I in this room? Not what role am I playing? Who am I? What do I actually think about this situation? Not, what should I think? What do I actually think? And what's one thing I'm not willing to change about myself tonight, no matter how the room responds? Write them down if you have to. Sounds simple, changes everything. Because when you've decided in advance, you stop looking for cues about how to be. You already know. And that settled quality, that groundedness, is exactly what makes people lean toward you instead of away. Framework 3, the curator mindset. This one is going to feel a little uncomfortable at first, but stay with it. Most people walk into social situations trying to pass a test. Am I interesting enough? Am I attractive enough? Do they like me? Will I fit in? That's the wrong direction entirely. The most magnetic people in any room aren't the ones desperately trying to be chosen. They're the ones doing the choosing. Think about the difference between a job applicant and a hiring manager. The applicant is nervous, trying to impress, monitoring every reaction. The hiring manager is relaxed, curious, evaluating. Same room, completely different energy. Now think about the people you're most drawn to in social situations. I'd almost guarantee they weren't the ones working hardest to win you over. They were the ones who seemed genuinely curious about you, but also comfortable enough to not need your approval. That's the curator mindset. You're not on display, you're exploring. You walk into a room genuinely wondering, who here is interesting? Who do I want to spend more time with? What's the story in this room tonight? You're not auditioning, you're selecting. And here's the subtle magic of it. When you stop trying to impress and start being genuinely curious, you become the most interesting person in the room. Because real curiosity is rare, and being truly seen by someone who isn't angling for something feels incredible. People remember how you made them feel. Make them feel interesting. That starts with actually finding them interesting. Framework 4, the contribution frame. This is the one that ends nervousness fastest. And I mean that literally. Here's where nervousness comes from. At its core, almost all social anxiety is a form of self-focus. You're thinking about yourself, how you're coming across, what they think of you, whether you're saying the right things. Your attention is pointed inward. And the fix isn't to think less of yourself. The fix is to redirect your attention entirely. Before you walk into any room, flip one question. Instead of, how will I come across? Ask, what can I add to this? What can I bring to this conversation? What energy does this room need? Who looks like they need someone to talk to? What's a question that might open something up? Contribution thinking is outward facing, and your nervous system physically cannot maintain the same level of anxiety when your attention is genuinely focused on other people. Think about the best hosts you've ever been around, the people who make a room feel alive. They're not thinking about themselves at all. They're constantly scanning for what the room needs and providing it. And somehow, without trying, they end up being the center of it. You don't have to be the loudest. You don't have to be the funniest. You just have to shift the question from, what will I get from this room, to, what can I give to it? That one shift. That's it. Framework 5, the long game lens. Here's the truth that most people resist until they actually internalize it. Nothing that happens in a single room matters that much. One bad first impression, one awkward conversation, one night where you weren't your best self, one interaction where you said the wrong thing or froze when you wanted to be sharp. None of it is permanent. None of it defines you. All of it is recoverable. But when you're in the moment, it doesn't feel that way. It feels enormous. And that feeling, that weight, is exactly what makes you smaller than you actually are. The long game lens is simple. Before any interaction that feels high stakes, zoom out. Ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? Will I even remember the specific thing I'm nervous about? Who will I be in 5 years if I keep showing up and doing this consistently? And then flip it. What happens if I show up fully right now, even imperfectly? What gets built over time if I keep doing that? Muhammad Ali didn't become the most confident man in any room from one press conference. He built that identity over thousands of moments, training sessions, small fights, conversations, decisions. The rumble in the jungle was just one expression of a framework he'd been building for years. Your confidence works the same way. Every room you walk into fully is a deposit. Every time you choose presence over performance, you're building something. And over time, that thing becomes unshakable. You stop worrying about individual moments because you trust the direction you're moving. Let's bring this home. 5 frameworks, one idea underneath all of them. The room doesn't get to decide who you are. You do. Before you walk in, Let go of the outcome. Decide your identity. Shift from impressing to exploring. Point your attention outward. And remember that what you're building right now is bigger than any single night. Ali walked into that press conference in 1974 already knowing who he was. He wasn't performing it. He wasn't hoping people would believe it. He just knew. That's what you're building with these 5 frameworks. Not a mask, not a set of tricks, a real, settled, unshakable sense of who you are when you walk through any door. And once you have that, rooms start to feel very different. If this landed for you, let me know in the comments which framework hit hardest.